TCS wins a 1.2 billion mega deal. Infosys backs a 2 billion digital transformation contract. You hear these numbers all the time, but have you ever stopped to wonder how do you they come out with that price? It's not just a simply hourly rate. It's a high stakes, multi-layered game of strategy. These IT giants are not selling software, they are selling a promise. That price tag has to hide a dozen secrets from the actual cost of their workforce in India to deliver a massive risk of deliverables. In this video, we are going behind the curtain to reveal the three strategic pillars of IT strategy pricing, and we will explore the secret formula behind the blender rate, unpack the difference between fixed price and outcome based deals, show you exactly why a low initial bid is often the most profitable move these companies make. If you want to understand how the global IT service industry really works, you need to understand this. So hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and let's decode the art of bid, the ultimate pricing hacks of TCS, Infosys and HCL. Deals and pricing strategies in software services. So in this video, you are going to learn about mainly the strategies of the pricing, the cost estimation, and the pricing models the IT giants follow for calculating the bidding price and negotiation and structuring of pricing deals and risk assessment in the pricing and common pitfalls in pricing strategies and specific consideration for Indian IT firms. Pricing preparation for bids. Understanding the client requirement. The client initially initiate the requirement and detailed analysis of request for proposal through RFP, RFI, and RFQ. Initially, it will be request for information and request for quote and request for proposal. Scope of work, it will be clearly mentioned from the client side and the deliverables and timelines and expected outcomes, client's industry and budget constraint and strategic goals. Basically, the client clearly gives the expectations in the request for proposal documents and says that one, this is the scope and the deliverables and the deadlines. Based on that, our IT companies break down the tasks and resources needed on site and offshore mix. This is where the global mixing and plays very critical role in the pricing and use of historical data and the estimation models. Usually, the IT companies take the past history of a same service of the deals and the expectations of the deals, and they forecast the resources required for the deal, and consideration of automation, AI tools, and reusable components. So this plays cost saving for at the highest level for the IT companies. And basically, the cost modeling is critically depends on resource cost, especially salary cost, benefits, and overloads. The overheads cost is very important because it changes to company and where it makes the difference in the pricing, especially the salary cost plays a most of the pricing component equal to 60 to 65 to 70% of the pricing depends on the resources salary and the skill set required for deliver the project and infrastructure and technology cost. This implies that one how best you can automate the price in order to using the chatbots, AI tools, or any patents, copyrights, or third-party deliverable softwares, hardwares. This plays a very critical role, and other expenses like traveling, training, and compliance costs. The process typically resolve around the three key elements: cost estimation, pricing model, and deal negotiation and structuring. Most of the companies in India follow the cost-based analysis, the core estimating the total efforts. Since efforts cost 70% of the uh, entire project, most of the cost they have to combine with the total efforts at on-site and at offshore. And it requires to complete the project. They break down the resources based on the hierarchy and the skill set requirement and requirement at on-site based on the client request and offshore deliverables. And what is the band level they are fixing and how band levels and salary details and skill set impact the pricing is mainly critically analyzed at the phase of cost based and resource estimations. And next phase is cost of delivery. Salaries, benefits, and overheads for the personnel assigned and factoring in the geographic location and lower cost for offshore resources in India and higher cost for on-site resources in the US and Europe. And the labor cost and non-labor cost as well. For example, if customer requires any kind of specific software licenses, hardware and travel and training and infrastructure, these costs need to be backed into the deal in order to arrive the correct pricing and margins. And sales and general administrative expenses, this is the game changer in all the industries across the IT giants, because this cost depends upon how costing and the company charges to the customer and the pricing and the deal submission costing. Corporate cost allocated to the project, so basically depends upon the non-participating resources cost. uh, Closely you can monitor like sales people cost and administrative people cost and people cost from the legal finance, and these and all resources costs are non-billable to the client, so they have to include in the overhead cost in order to arrive the correct pricing and margin and profits. The target price margin is added to the total cost to arrive the floor price. So in each of these parameters, the optimization of the cost is very important in order to give the best cost optimization to the customer. So basically, the Indian IT companies follow the three pricing models, and in addition to that one, there is a hybrid model as well. So one is fixed price model, well-defined projects with a clear scope. For example, there is a requirement for SAP implementation for Coca-Cola. So client has bidded for 5 year services for $5 million, and you need to, it is a fixed price. Every year you will get 1 million, and every quarter it will be divided again 250 so this way the pricing is arrived at fixed price. So this is, there is no change in the price, the contract will be signed for the total price, and you have to deliver the work with the basis of estimation of the resources, and you have to give to the clear bidding to the customer how you deliver the milestones. And time and material based on actual efforts and resources used. So here you will give the resources list, so many based on the band level, job level, and cost per resources, how you charge to the customer for hourly rate. For example, if it is a band level 2, 3, 4, the highest band level based on the experience and skill set is 5, and below that one 4, below that 3, 2. So it depends upon the skill set, experience level, the person able to deliver the project. So based on that time and material, that resources spend how much time. For example, he is spending 21 days in a month, and per day, per hour cost is $50. So $50 into 8 hours per day, 8 hours per day into 21 days. So this is the charge you are going to bill to the customer, and customer takes these resources and uses based on his requirement for development of the project, either for the development of his custom requirement of the project, or he takes the resources for testing or supporting or any kind of requirement. The only requirement from the resources side is you have to give the resources. How to utilize that resources depends upon the customer need. The third one is outcome based pricing linked to the business results and KPIs. Most of the companies they want to give the pricing based on the deliverables and outcome. For example, you want to build the application size of 100. So if you deliver that application size of 100 within the period of 1 year, you will get the 50% of the share. Or 100 applications into per application cost is, for example, if it is a 1 million, then 100 application you will get the 100 million. So this is the way outcome based pricing will be determined to the software industry. And hybrid models, it is a mix of fixed price and variable components. It will benefit both to the customer as well as to the service provider, because it depends upon how you use it, how it will kind of a win-win situation based on the resources available and requirement of the client. And competitive benchmarking, analysis of the competitive pricing and market trends, adjustment based on the client negotiation salary and strategic values. The benchmarking, always most of the companies like Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Amazon, they do the benchmarking with the other suppliers. For example, in India, one pricing is provided by the Infosys, TCS, and HCL, and Cognizant or Accenture. These kind of all pricings, how the competitors are providing the pricing to the customer, they will analyze and they will do the market pricing with the best paid practices, and they will do the benchmarking. This is the best price we can do for this project. Internal review and approvals. So a lot of pricing is relating with the cost. Cost means either definitely the finance has to involve there, and the delivery of project is in the hands of delivery team, and delivery teams involves here. In terms of the legal compliance, need to make sure that one, since you are doing the business across the global, you should make sure that one how these legal terms and legal risks are involved in this contract, in this project, how to protect the legally the project if there is unforeseen situation or events happen in the future, how we will be on the safer side. So these are all assumptions. It will be clearly drafted in the contract and it will be signed after winning the deal. And risk assessment and margin analysis. So at any time, the best price, best margin you can arrive at optimizing at every phase. Either it is at the cost of resources, direct cost, indirect cost, or legal cost, whatever may be you including in the deal pricing. And final approval from the leadership at deal desk. Once leadership says, yes, we are submitting some 1 billion deal for 5 years to Coca-Cola. And that pricing, we have a 10% margin, 10% operating margin. Yes, we are okay to go ahead and submit it for 5 years and submit and win the deal, and we can sign the contract. So once you get approval, the deal will be submitted to the customer for analysis. That will be done by the sales team. How deal pricing works. So the critical part in the entire deal pricing is negotiation phase. Once you submit the deal, client asks for lower rates, especially in the large or long-term contracts, especially if the size of the contract is 100 million, 400 million, or 1 billion, and it is a kind of a 10 years, 5 years, 7 years. These long-term projects especially need to start with the critical negotiation phase. Service provider offers discount and valuable additions and flexible terms in terms of volume discount. If you give this much of business year on year, based on that, we will increase the volume and you will get more business and I will get also discount, and it is a kind of a win-win situation. both will win in the business. So these kind of offers it will be given to the customer to attract the customer attention and any value additions. So we will give, if you give the 100 million business per year, I'll give the free resources worth of 10 million to you. So you can use as a customer, you can use these 10 million worth of resources for any kind of work you need or projects you need to deliver, you need to build in your company and flexible terms. So there is a lot of clauses in the contract like payment terms, liability clause, audit clause, and resources clause, step-in clause. A lot of clauses it will be negotiated and given the flexibility. For example, you need not pay me the invoice amount within 30 days after issuing the invoice. They will tell that you will take 90 days to pay the invoice to us. We are okay for that. Some of the companies even go for 120 days also. So these kind of negotiations and flexibilities will be included in the contract. And value-based pricing, increasingly popular due to all AI and automations, because every year customer look for optimization in the pricing and decrease in the cost to the company. So the service providers, IT giants, they think that one how they can do the automation. For example, you have done the SAP implementation for Coca-Cola, and you in the first year you charged 1 million cost to the customer, and you asked that one second year you already done the SAP implementation and you are now supporting, you can do reduce the cost. So 1 million will come with the automation tools, and using the automation tools on chatbots and a lot of tools you can use to reduce the cost. Instead of 1 million you are charging, you can charge only 80 million, and year on year there is a 20% cost saving to the customer. At the same time, in the third year customer expects some more discount. So instead of second year you charge 80 million, third year what is the saving to me? Then you have to tell that one, okay, we will charge only 60 million because we know the process now and we can use more automation and we reduce the on-site resources cost and we only support from offshore. So cost of resources will reduce here, and using the automation you can make more flexible, and cost saving will come to supplier as well. So this way, the IT using the IT automation and artificial intelligence will make the significant difference in service delivery. And dynamic adjustments. Pricing may be revised based on the scope changes, performance, and renewals. Use of pricing tools and analytics to monitor the profitability, because the scope should be constant. If you are revising the most of the customers what they do, the scope is defined in the statement of work or master service agreement MSA. They have to perform based on the required scope, and if there is any changes are required, sometimes the customer side they will come back and say that one, I am revising the scope, I need more resources, I need more work. Then they execute the one more request for change, that is called CR, and it works based on the performance, and sometimes it will reverse as well. Customer comes back and says that one, I don't want more work, I don't have the budget, I am facing some issues, reduce the scope. Those cases the supplier has to reduce the scope. And in terms of the renewal of the projects also, these changes happen accordingly. And contractual safeguard clauses for inflation, cost of living index is the one of the significant role it plays in the all the IT deals, because every year the cost increases for the project because of increase in the cost in terms of salary fluctuations of inflation, exchange rate fluctuations, and uh, increase of the cost of pricing. So all these factors influence the contract. At the same time, while executing the contract has to be defined how much the supplier can increase the year on year the price based on the inflation index of the specific country where we are delivering the services. And also include SLA's penalties for non-performance because a service line agreements are very important in the contract. The customer is not delivering the expected outcome within the certain deadlines provided by the customer. For example, he has to resolve the ticket raised by the customer within 24 hours. So those are high priority tickets. If there is any default in those kind of deliverables, the customer has a right to impose the penalty to the suppliers. So these are the very critical terms need to be executed in the contracts of the software companies. Strategic and competitive factors. The initial cost-based pricing is the adjustment based on the external and strategic considerations. Client value and ROI is very critical in terms of solution is expected to be delivered, return on investment, or strategic values to the client. For example, transformation, the digital projects. Especially in these kind of projects, there should be value to the customer because customer is investing a lot. At the same time, supplier also investing and putting their resources into the project and expecting deliverable to the client. So there should be win-win situation from the both side. Both will look at return on investment and competitive landscape. The firm reaches companies likely bids if possible, and their positioning and aggressive pricing like low margin, even loss leader pricing may be used. Scale and duration of the deals. Larger and multi-year contracts especially receive more favorable pricing, lower daily hourly rates due to the guaranteed revenue and predictability. Because once you sign the contract, it will be fixed for 3 years or 5 years or 5 plus 2 years. These kind of key deals with a large price, even though you have a low margin, single digit margin, the companies go and sign the deals because in the future they do a lot of optimization in the costing so that their margin improvement will be at the higher end. Risk premium. The buffer is added to the projects like unclear requirements and complex technology integration and new domain. So always the company pricing includes the buffer. If they don't do the buffer in the pricing, if they face any unforeseen situation or requirement or changes in the resources or costing, then the project will be running in the negative margins. So it will be very important to factor all those risk parameters, the financial parameters, and delivery risk parameters, and legal risk parameters while executing a contract and submitting a deal. These are very, very critical factors to evaluate a complete deal. And software firms use the various pricing model but often blended within a single deal to meet the client risk profile and needs. So usually they go for most of the time and material based on the requirement of the customer. They pay fixed daily rates for the used resources and total cost is variable based on time spent. So when the project is client requirement is not clear and client want to involve directly into the research and development or agile developments. So these kind of cases, customer only take the resources and pay per resources cost based on the experience and skill set of the resources. So here the client risk is high, but vendor risk is very low because you are just giving the resources and client can use whatever the way he wants it. So your vendor risk is limited till supply the resources and fixed price model. Client plays single amount, predetermined price for clearly defined scope of work. For example, Amazon pays some fixed price, for example, 100 million to TCS for delivering the software implementation and maintenance of any software, for example, SAP, Oracle, or any kind of custom public softwares. So here Amazon gives 100 million contracts to TCS for 10 years, and per year they have to make 10 million payment. Is a fixed amount in the contract. The project with well-defined scope and requirement. For example, IT system upgrade with fixed scope. So our IT software migration from uh, to cloud systems, right? And implementation of Oracle. So these kind of set of things are fixed pricing. Client risk is low and the vendor risk is high because he has to make sure that one the milestone will be delivered based on the expectations of the customer. It will be done within a time. If it is not done within a time, vendor faces a lot of SLA risks. Managed services, unit based. So client pays a fixed amount per unit of outcome or service consumed. So long-term operation and maintenance, for example, X cost per server managed and Y cost per user ticket resolved. So it depends upon number of tickets you resolved and number of resources you use to resolve the tickets, and it depends upon that pricing. And here is a medium in both the cases because here the contract price is completely determined by outcome, not based on the fixed price or time and material. Hybrid. The combination of the above fixed pricing for initial setup and managed services for ongoing support. Most large scale transformation are outsourced deals. These are balanced and these are also good for client as well as the vendor because most of business process outsourcing are depends upon the deals, and it have the both fixed price to some extent and there will be managed services on top of it. Outcome based. So pricing is tied to measurable business results, percentage of cost saving, revenue split, or successful transition. Digital transformation projects where the value is quantifiable. For example, client risk is very low and the vendor risk is high, but with a high reward potential because you are here a profit sharing person in the with the client. So in this outcome based services, initially you have to invest. Vendor has to invest the resources and he has a cost of finance as well. They had to back into the pricing so that in order to achieve the right pricing. So initially vendor will not get until unless the outcome is ready and for the deliverables. So the pricing and the revenue will be determined at the end of the outcome so that it will be highly rewarded at the same time highly risky as well. How pricing deals work in terms of negotiation and the pricing. So negotiation levers. So rate card and blender rates. Vendors may start with the high rate card and offer a discount to secure the deal. They negotiate the blender rate, the leverage rate across the team's resources mix, and based on the skill set, offshore onshore pricing, and often increasing the proportion of lower cost offshore resources to lower blended rate for the client. The strategy most of the companies follow here is they include the rate per resources, for example, at $100 per hour, and finally they offer to the customer with the 25% discount, and they do the resources billing at $75 per hour. So this will show more attention to the customer and attract the customer for the discount. And commercial terms, negotiating the payment milestones, currency risk, and penalties for SLAs, service line agreements, and incentives for early delivery. So when the customer signing the contract, the supplier wants to include these kind of benefits so that there will be more benefits to the supplier if he meets the contract requirement without any deviations. And it is again win-win situation to supplier as well as customer. Both will save the cost. Pricing for the growth. Deals are often structured with a lower initial price, anticipating an increase in the scope of work and prices adjustment upon contract renewals. Most of the companies, if it is a big deal, for example, the deal from Google, the deal from Amazon, the deal from Microsoft, the deal from Facebook, or the deal from Tesla, to our IT giant companies, this if it is a good pricing and long-term pricing, very high value pricing, for example, if it is a kind of $1 billion business for 5 years contract, they give the best optimized pricing initially in order to grab the deal. Once they grab the deal, they do the lot of adjustment, internal resources, and they deliver their promise. And in order to optimize the count of the total value of the deal and margins of the deal, and they do lot of structuring without changing the outcome delivery to the customer. And these are the tricks and the tactics followed by IT chains in order to grab the large deals. And in terms of renewals also, they give the best offer to the customers based on their service and work experience for initial 5 years. And they do the best volume discount and best resources cost fee and best resources investment for client locations, client projects, and future client works, and best cost saving year on year. These are the kind of hours it will be given to top companies in order to renew the deal again. And most of the IT companies in India, they get the 70 to 80% of revenue from renewing the customers and retaining the customers. And this is where the magic lies. And volume discount. Committing to a higher volume of services or multi-year contract terms often result in better overall discount for the client. So structuring mega deals. So mega deals, $1 million or $1 billion worth. uh, they follow certain kind of strategies. Low initial margin. So in initial phase, often fixed price transition and maybe aggressive price to win the contract. To optimize the price, optimize the cost, and give the low single digit margin deals to the customer to attract the customer attention. And provide the good governance, give the lot of promises in terms of discount, in terms of freebies, in terms of investments in the customers project, etc., etc. And product improvements. The deal includes year over year. So this is what I mentioned in the starting, the savings shown to the customer, and they say that I am giving first year the cost to you is $100 million. Second year entire cost is for $80 million. I saved the cost 20 million per year because of my optimization in terms of project deliverables, so that your cost is saved per year $20 million. This is the way through automation, process optimization, AI automation, chatbots. So this kind of productivity will be shown by IT giants to top companies. This force the vendor continuously become a more efficient to maintain their margins as well. Governance and change requests. The contract defines a clear process and pricing mechanism for change request. As a project progresses, the client requests the new features or change requests are common occurrences. These are called CRs. Become a major source of high margin revenue for the vendor, because anything comes out of the scope work or anything required from the customer, any ad hoc works or something more beyond that, it will be charged extra to the customer based on change request. This is again one more tactic for IT giants to gain more boost of work from the customer. And vendor lock-in. By deeply integrating their occurrence and technology into the client's core operations, the cost and risk of switching vendors become high and securing the long-term profitability of the deal because the customer worked. For example, TCS worked for IT governance for very long time in India, and changing that project to another customer like Infosys takes a lot of time, and transition of the knowledge and technology and resources will take a more risk for the government. But in order to change the process and requirements, they have to make sure that one have to take that risk and change the resource. That is the reason most of the vendors lock the contract with the customer for specific period because the vendor has to deliver the project and investing a lot of resources in the project and cost on resources and return on ROI they have to get within the time period. The key pricing models, contract types, we already discussed. This is the cost plus overall cost on top of the what is the margin you are delivering to the customers. And cost plus models is very easy to the price to the vendor and price to customer analysis. And sometimes the customer also evaluate the pricing what is the best, whether they want to go with time and material because it is the cost of work, actual hours of work plus cost of material. So it's useful when the scope is uncertain, especially in the research projects and development projects. Fixed price is a well-defined scope, and vendor can take more risk if scope changes, right? So the customer reimburses the cost incurred plus margin plus incentives for vendor in cost plus or cost reimbursement projects. Value-based, outcome-based risk reward. Pricing linked to business outcomes, deliverables, and shared risk. Retainer subscription and dedicated teams for ongoing services support rather than distinct projects because most of subscription models are followed by products like IT. For example, Netflix is there and you are subscribing for certain period, you get the revenue. At the same time, after subscription is over, after 1 year, you have to renew again. Otherwise, there won't be any continuity. So these kind of subscription models, ongoing services will be there for software applications as well. Steps in preparing a bid and pricing for the deals. Requirement capture and solution design. This is very, very critical in the initial phase. The delivery team has to assess whether they have the requirement of the skill set, whether they need to recruit the resources, or what stage they have. Right? They have to clearly define the scope and deliverables and timelines of the project, quality and service levels. This create the great solutions, and solution architects and delivery team has to involved in this evaluation in the bidding of the contract and team composition, tools, offshore, onshore mix, and skill set availability, and estimate the cost and revenue. So overall headcount, including the juniors, seniors, and mid-level management, and efforts per hour and deliverables, factors in the labor cost, onshore, offshore. For example, if there is 100 resources in the project, 20 resources will be working at the on-site, and 80 resources will be supporting from offshore, so that they can leverage the overall cost of the project. Overheads and tool licensing and infrastructure, and any kind of pass-throughs, licenses, hardwares, or any infrastructure requirements are included in the deal. Those should be priced appropriately with the vendor costs. Estimate the indirect cost, training, traveling, project management, and backup resources cost, etc., need to be properly backed into the cost. If any of missing of these important parameters, the deal pricing will be Not correct. Once you submit the pricing, once you sign the contract, once you start the project will be running in overcosting, and there will be negative margins in the project. You are not able to recover the overall cost. That is the reason while pricing the contract itself, you should price it properly with all the resources, all the cost, all the elements, so that when project is going on the live, it will be on profitable end. And add buffer for risk, change requests and contingencies, because the buffer is very important in the deal estimations, because this buffer will protect the entire project revenue and cost. So it depends upon what is the risk and uncertainties at the resources level, or project level, or any third party licenses part, etc. etc. So this baking into the cost, the finance team helps to the delivery team to optimize and give the best pricing and decide margin profitability target. Service firms will have target margins, and they will consider the market competitiveness, internal costs, base, and strategic values. Select pricing model and define terms. So, based on the scope, clarity, and client risk appetite and strategic nature of the deal, pricing model is selected. That we discussed in the previous slide. Either it should be T&M model, time and material model, or fixed pricing model, or outcome-based model. And define the payment milestones. So, client always be very interesting in case of if you meet every month this kind of a milestones, I will pay this much. So this will be the table will be executed in the contract statement of work that we call as a SOW, and sometimes it will be given in MSAs as well, Master Service Agreement, which governs the entire project terms and conditions, deliverables, and legal requirements, and escalation clauses, and deliverable matrix, and inflation foreign exchange clauses. These terms are critical. For example, many Indian service companies are pushing for inflation linked adjustment in contract renewals. As I mentioned, OLA cost of living index clause is very critical, and it will be open ended in most of the Indian IT companies' contracts, because cost of index every year they can increase the cost of the price by 3%, 4%, 5% based on the cost of increase of respective country inflation. And competitive benchmarking and pricing position. The bidders check market rates, what competitors may bid, and what clients expect. So, decide whether to bid aggressively or with a standard margin. Consider the offshore onshore blend to be competitive in pricing. So the benchmarking and the same services and same kind of IT companies in the same landscape, how they are delivering for other companies. So, for example, Infosys is delivering the same services for same location, same geographical conditions at 100 million. TCS is delivering the same project, the same location for 80 million. So customer will benchmark their pricing strategy and ask Infosys to reduce their price to 80 million. Like this, they do with the best fair practice, market practice, analyze the price, and they do the benchmarking in the for the competitive pricing positioning. Risk assessment. So the scope creep, change request, resource attrition, most of the project, if it is a very big project like 100 million, so there will be 1,000 resources will be working, or maybe sometimes there will be 10,000 resources working for single project. And most of the IT companies nowadays, you know that people will be changing very drastically for higher salary and promotions, career growth, etc., etc. So when there is a every Here, where if 1,500 to 1,000 resources are leaving the project, it's a very high cost risk to the software companies. They have to make sure that one, the resources is available on the project and the project is delivered on the time, so that they will bake into all these costing terms and fluctuations in the pricing time to time, and budget risk mitigation clauses, change control, escalation, exit clauses, and audit clauses, limitation of liability clauses, step in clauses, and contract cost of living clauses, and assign the cost and service for risk. These and all legal risks, as financial risk, should be assessed before signing the contract, negotiated appropriately with the customer in order to protect the interest of both the parties. And final bid submission. Present the proposal with all the pricing models and number of iterations, revisions. All the teams should be aligned together. It should be finance, delivery, legal, sales. Everybody has to align together, and the bid will be submitted to the customer at agreed price internally with approvals. Negotiate with the client. So the clarifying the assumption, revising the pricing, aligning the service levels, and once accepted by both the parties, the contract will be signed and the work will be started and start delivering the work to the customer. So contract negotiations is very critical in all the IT GMs companies. It requires a certain kind of expert and analytical skills in order to draft entire bidding deal negotiations and finally signing the contract. The governance and monitoring, because the service level risks and fixed pricing deals and request for changes and renewal and price adjustments. This makes very critical, especially in terms of increase or fluctuation adjustments, upsell or cross sell of higher value services. For example, TCS mentioned using the prices increases as part of margin strategy after signing the contract with upsell and cross sell. So profitability monitoring internally, firms track how actually cost and bid cost compare, because the customer once received the bidding from TCS, HCL, Infosys, Cognizant, Accenture. He took all the pricings and see the prices and who is giving the best pricing. Some people will same project, TCS quoted 100 million, Infosys quoted 95 million, HCL quoted 90 million, and Cognizant quoted only 80 million. Then customer will look at the cost saving and look for Cognizant as the best vendor or priority vendor, and sign start negotiating from the customer. And this is the way they evaluate not only in the pricing terms, they do what deliverables and experience of the customers and what are the freebies, investments, and other uh, brand level strategies they are providing. Everything will be taken into evaluation. After evaluating all points, for example, Infosys got 7 points, and TCS got 8 points, and HCL got 6 points, but Cognizant got 9 points. So, highest qualified vendor for that project will be Cognizant. So, continuous improvement and upsell using the past experience to refine future bids and upsell value added services like cloud and digital transformation that allows the higher pricing. So, specific consideration for Indian IT service firms. So, offshore onshore delivery mix. Why most of the global companies come to India and gives the work India is we deliver at the lowest labor cost. that makes the difference in the pricing. For example, Microsoft is there. If they want to give the work to the employees in America and the cost of the salaries is very high, that is the reason they, if they give to any Indian company, our labor cost is very cheap here. Instead of 100 million they are paying to the project, if they can give 60 million or 50 million to Indian companies, they will deliver the same project. Here, cost saving for Microsoft is 50 million. That is the reason they are giving IT services deals to Indian companies because of cheap labor and more benefit to American companies. Even same for Europe companies as well. And currency fluctuation and inflation. Indian firms include clauses address cost increases, salary fluctuation, attrition, etc. So that the cost is acceptable compared to higher cost in local places in US or America. Fixed price contracts carry higher risk. Research shows time and materials less recovery for vendors than fixed price in Indian context. So value mix, digital cloud AI is very important to improve the margins and efficiency and productivity through utilization, automation, offshore leverage improves the margin. A strategic deals sometimes firms bid at a lower margin initially to acquire a client and then aim to build further business at higher margins. Common pitfalls. These are the very, very important concept in the overall IT deals. Close to hidden cost and leads to cost overrun in fixed price deals. So most of the deals, if you don't price properly, and it will be overcosted when the project goes on live, then it means the costs are not backed into the pricing properly. That will show losses to IT companies. It will cost is high, revenue is less. So you need to make sure all hidden costs are backed into the pricing and scope creep without repricing, without change controls, vendor eats cost. Yes. So we need to do the repricing and change the controls, vendors, and in order to optimize the pricing, attrition and job loss. If teams members leave, cost increase and risk of delivery. Most of the IT companies facing nowadays because of this issue. This is a biggest pitfalls for IT companies because the recruitment cost is very high in the IT companies. Clients demand for additional services at the same price because out of scope of work also client demands to deliver. This is the risks we need to negotiate clearly with the customer with the defined scope in the contract. Otherwise, it is a big pitfall. Too aggressive pricing equal to unsustainable margin can damage the profitability and service quality. So in the entire essence of overall pricing, whether it is a TCS or 2 billion contract or 100 million deal for 5 years, a 10% highly valued deal for any IT company like HCL, right? Or Infosys or Cognizant or any kind of a pricing model, it will be properly estimated. And IT experts, delivery team, finance experts, legal experts has to clearly evaluate the deal. Otherwise, it is a big loss to IT companies in terms of resource modeling and market benchmarking or risk assessment in the overall bidding and pricing model based on the project characteristics and time and material, fixed pricing, whether what kind of scope, whether we can deliver the project on the time with the limited resources. These and all escalation changes and these and all need to be evaluated in the pricing appropriately. and focus on deliverables, margin improvements, and efficiency, and future upsell and rewards and renewals as well. So offshore delivery model, global compatibility, and adjusting with the different timings and 24 bar 7 support, especially for the banking projects, inflation cost, overhead cost, additional cost, travel cost, and extra allowances for OT, overtime working in India, and supporting midnight to the overseas customers. So all these cost has to be properly evaluated and considered in the pricing of the deal. So, like Infosys, HCL, TCS use the multi-layer data-driven strategies to prepare their pricing for bids and manage the deal pricing. This process blends the cost-based estimation, competitive benchmarking, and client-specific value composition to maximize the win rates while competing, while protecting the margins. So especially the overhead cost, direct cost, cost of softwares, any pass-throughs. You buy the software, for example, Amazon is there. So in order to maintain their business, they will ask for please Infosys come and implement in our 100 countries all the location SAP and maintain it for 5 years. Your deal I am giving 100 million or 500 million for each year. 100 million I will give you 500 million for 5 years. You sign the contract and take the project and deliver. So now the Infosys work is to deliver this project with at best margin impact and best services. They have to promise, they have to deliver all the promises what they made in the contract. So at the same time, the IT giants has to maintain 10 to 30% depending on the deal scope and risk profile. They have to maintain the margins. Choice of pricing model we already discussed, and they have to go based on the scope requirements. So marketing benchmarking is very important because the IT software industry is close to $5 trillion nowadays in US, and it is increasing globally day by day. So that our IT companies are getting more business and with the best revenue margins 10 to 15%, or sometimes it is more than that because of offshore delivery models. And advanced deal structuring is very important in all the pricing models. Governance and approval layers, and each and every phase they have to follow, whether it is 100 million to 1 billion, or they have should have the pricing committee approvals, finance approvals, executive leadership approvals, and threshold approvals before submitting the deal. And it increases relay on the hybrid pricing, and there is a financial science behind each and every deal goes before submitting the bid. With entire organization expert will work to model the pricing to submit to the customer. And the game changer in the 2025, and the customers and vendors have to think big. It is a big picture they have to think to deliver the outcomes. The best thing here is expect more and lower cost, right? And over promise, under deliver. Not happens. You have to promise what you have to deliver, right? Or under promise, over deliver. That way you can satisfy the customers always.